Well, with a real landlord buzz in the background, we are delighted to launch a new themed week on Property Tribes in association with our deposit protection partner, TDS, and I'm joined by Mike Morgan. And Mike, you guys have come up with this really good themed week of a life cycle of tenancy deposit protection. And you come out to a lot of shows like this, and even, many years on from when tenancy deposit protection was introduced, you still talk to landlords that haven't heard of it. It's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's right. As you say, 12 years in, still get people who don't know what to do about their deposit, never heard of deposit protection. So it's a good event like this, as many others, to get that message out to people and try and get people talking more and better informed.
And that's the point of our themed week as well, isn't it? Because we want to document the life cycle of a tenancy deposit protection. And I think we're always saying, and we can't say it enough, that if a tenancy is set up correctly at the beginning, it reduces the potential for heartache and financial loss later down the line.
No, that's absolutely right. And we see in our disputes and also in the training we do in our academy that often it's a lot of things that can be done at the outset that people forget or don't understand, and they're just storing up trouble for further down the road. So I think, if you like, cradle to grave is the way to go. Look at birth of a deposit all the way through to the end of the tenancy. What can we do to try and minimise those problems?
Let's talk a little bit about the consequences of not protecting a deposit, because they can be quite severe.
No, they can, and in fact only this morning we're doing some training for an agent in London. Essentially you're very likely to have a court order the return of the deposit, and the court also has to award the tenant between 1 and 3 times the deposit. So for example, the agent I was at this morning, average deposit about £2,000. They're likely to lose that deposit in a tenancy and have to pay the tenant up to £6,000. Though that responsibility rests with the landlord, obviously if the agent gets it wrong, landlord's going to be coming after the agent for some redress. So it's an expensive mistake, but one that's easy to avoid.
And also you can't issue a Section 21 notice if the deposit hasn't been protected correctly. That's something that should focus landlords' minds.
No, it should, and we still hear of cases where agents or landlords have got it wrong, wanted to rely on a Section 21, choosing voluntarily to give that deposit back to the tenant to hope that eases the situation, but then being caught by that penalty later on.
So what have we got lined up for this week? Because as we said, we're going to follow it from beginning to end. We're going to be introducing a new piece of content onto Property Tribes every morning. So there's going to be some fresh content to check out every morning. And really, we're just going to document the whole process from start to finish, aren't we?
Yes, that's right. So as I say, think about deposits, but also holding deposits. What's the difference? What happens if you roll over into a tenancy deposit? How to protect it? Serving prescribed information, all the way through to negotiations towards the end of the tenancy. I think where we can add value to that is through all the disputes we deal with. We just see these common themes that come up time and time again. Reasons why tenants, for example, get het up about deductions. They don't always understand why they're responsible. So a lot of tips we can give about how better to negotiate, how better to explain things to tenants. But also I think getting it right at the beginning, so you're minimising the things you've got to wade through at the end of the tenancy.
Can you share any funny case studies or stories that you've had recently?
Well, I think our most amusing one of late is a student property which had a dead stuffed gorilla left behind in it. I don't know what these tenants were doing with this gorilla, but our landlord was claiming for the cost of its removal and disposal. Finds out that it's actually an antique dead stuffed gorilla, and Victorian taxidermy used arsenic as a preservative, so this becomes a big deal. You've got to be very careful how you handle it and dispose of it. So costs that were quite a chunk of the deposit, and our tenants then start to argue a counterclaim, thinking, it's actually worth quite a lot of money then, so you should be paying us. We won't deal with that counterclaim, we'll just deal with the claim for the removal costs against the deposit.
I have to say that is hilarious. I like it that you make tenancy deposit protection fun, because these stories really drive home, and it helps landlords remember, doesn't it?
It does, and one of the things that we're pushing a lot at the moment is, for example, doing better inventories. That helps obviously resolve disputes and helps the tenant understand what they're responsible for. And we push this sort of attention to detail message, but one of the inventories we saw this year was a sort of checkout report which referred to a dead beetle that was in bed 1 at the start of the inventory is now in bed 3. So I don't know what the claim was for, cost of putting it back where it should be or what, I don't know.
That's brilliant. And of course, the helpline run by TDS is available to landlords. Any questions, any problems, you're there on the end of the phone, you've got online chat, many ways you can communicate with TDS for support. Yeah,
exactly. We do live chat via the website, contact centre, 8 till 6, Monday to Friday, 24/7 website, and also publish our email addresses as well, so people can contact people within the teams and we'll come back to them within the next working day.
Well, that's brilliant, Mike, and if you ever find out what happened to the beetle, I'd be interested to know. So this is the launch of our Tenancy Deposit Protection Week. We're following the life cycle of tenancy deposit protection, and all the content is provided by our TDP partner, TDS. Mike, thank you very much as always for your support of Property Tribes for the landlord community, because I know that education is a big part of your remit.
Yeah, absolutely. The more we can get people to understand, better for everybody.
So stay tuned. Coming up all this week, Tenancy Deposit Protection Week, the life cycle of a deposit. So tune in daily to find out more. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.